Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Chapter Two's Talent Ed podcast. I'm joined today by Mischa Walmsley, Senior Talent Partner at Element. Element is a matrix-based end-to-end encrypted messenger and collaboration app. They placed 10th this year on the Startups 100 list and are having huge success. Mischa gives his insight and experience and tells us all about how to understand who is really in your target demographic of talent, how we need to demonstrate to our future and also current employees that we really care, and the role that mental health plays in the workplace. So listen in, and we hope you enjoy. Okay, so a big welcome to Mischa, who I have been trying to get on the podcast for a long time now. Thank you so much for joining me. I think it's third time lucky. And I'm so pleased to have you here. We've just been talking at length anyway, so we just thought we better press record and get going with it. But let's just kick off with a little bit of an intro on you. Like you say, you don't like to talk about yourself too much, but you have had a few years experience now within the world of talent acquisition, tech specifically as well. Tell us a little bit about, where you've come from.
Working backwards. I'm currently working for a really cool and interesting tech company, but of course I would say that. Working in open source software and decentralized systems. A very simple way to put it, and I like simple things, is we compete against Slack and Teams, but in a more decentralized and open source context. A better relationship with data security and data provenance, called Element. And then there's this beautiful complex relationship between the Matrix protocol, which we wrote and built, which is a not-for-profit, and the client we built on top of that called Element. Really fun organization. We're shifting gears from what, in my frame of reference, I'd say we're shifting gears from being an established startup with product market fit and good revenue growth year on year, quarter on quarter, lots of decent size, happy customers, and a really strong inflow of customers. We're shifting gears into a more scale up environment, but we're trying to do it in a holistic and sustainable manner, not a hockey stick growth at all costs, but a true hiring for retention mindset. And slow and steady rather than fast and sharp as a growth curve. And so we have all of the same problems of any other scaling tech company, which is good because there's a lot of knowns. Prior to that, so I'm currently with Element, which is exciting. Prior to that, confusingly, I was with Elements Talent Consultancy, which is a really exciting and dynamic consulting business working with scaling tech companies. I spent a little over 2 years working with them, and I was embedded on the Spotify project with them. I worked in a few different aspects of Spotify while I was on that project, which was an interesting insight into human first led business. You can care deeply about the people in your care, as well as growing revenue, and you don't have to necessarily have a trade-off for those two things.
It does exist.
Prior to that, I spent a handful of years working in the London agency side market for tech recruitment, albeit I was specifically focused on product management hiring. And that feels like a million years ago, even though it was a hot minute ago. Prior to that, I had a whole other life doing a whole bunch of other stuff, a lot of which was around human resources and kickstarting. I think I firmly believe people over intellectualize hiring in general and hiring in tech. But spend a whole day talking about that.
Well, let's start with that, because I think what we were just talking about before we pressed record was really interesting. And I like the way that you like to keep things simple. And actually, I think sometimes people can make more progress and take more tangible direction or advice or experience or whatever it might be from it. So let's revisit that. So we said, obviously, we hear constantly about this war for talent, especially tech talent currently in the market. Things are pretty fierce, as people like to say. But what do you think is kind of, if someone's approaching, a number of roles that they might be recruiting, especially within that sort of tech sector, what do you think are kind of the foundations that they need to have in place or they need to understand before they start worrying about whether they're involved in a war for talent?
I think if you're not prioritizing for people first, then you're already failing your responsibility to the business that you're serving, the organization, and the individuals. And to expand on that, I mean, in rapidly growing tech businesses, I always try and hire for the team that needs hiring for most first, like care for the people in the business. If you have a team that's underserved and under-resourced, make sure that team is safe. And if that means adding 1 or 2 more people so they can get through a growth period, do that above your strategic goals. Don't leave your teams underserved and under-resourced because they'll leave. And then you have a problem about replacing them in an already volatile market. Sure. That's just the sentiment that I really think of around prioritization first. When we speak about the subject about like the war for talent, to revisit what we were speaking on just before, I think it's a misrepresentation. I think if you think there's a war for talent, then you've got an adversarial mindset, or you're like some tech bro who wants to sound big and great. Good luck with that. I think that it's a competitive marketplace it's a competitive process in a very bubbly and volatile market. That actually hasn't changed too much in the last 5 years. It's just augmenting. But if you go through your professional life thinking that it's a battle, then that's what you'll get out of it, right?
Yeah.
I think you really need to understand if you think you're competing for talent, who you think you're competing against and why. If you don't understand what your addressable market of talent is, then how can you possibly like seek to engage with them? If you can truly compete with FANG, then you're going to have to, sure as heck, have to do it on the terms of the talent that are in that market segment. Yeah. And that means you are probably a unicorn and have very deep pockets to address that problem space. But if you want FANG talent and you don't have the depth of those pockets, work out where the people are that you need, how to find them, how to communicate with them on their terms.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I suppose if you get to that point and you understand actually who you are competing with or who that talent is that you want, what's the next step? Like, how do you start to go about approaching those people? How do you appeal to them?
Oh, there's nothing really novel and new in that. It's just about storytelling, isn't it? Like, humor is really simple. We want a compelling narrative. We want to see our position in that narrative. You need to tell the story of why the team, the business, the company, the organization, the work is meaningful to that specific person. I've seen, if you can't tell a compelling story, you should probably get some help. Right, you don't know. Not everybody's a storyteller, and that sincerely, I've been following this chap who works with CEOs on strategic narrative. Literally, just consults with CEOs on ensuring that from the C-suite down, there is an actually effective, holistic, strategic narrative for that organization. Same holds true. Like, if you think you can hire people without positioning, without telling them a compelling story and showing them where their position is in that story and what their contribution to the growth of that or company that, well, people really don't care about the company anymore too much unless you've got a very strong vision or mission. But the work, like, what am I going to build? Especially if we're talking about tech and software engineers, like, they're creators, they're artistic individuals who want to know what problems they're going to solve.
Yeah.
That's not, I don't think that's too different from most people in a professional context.
Yeah, and actually that's come up a couple of times recently. We've been talking to companies, brands that are very much kind of household names, huge kind of, you know, huge awareness of them. But what they don't necessarily have is there's no kind of outward facing understanding of what somebody in the tech world might be doing within that brand, which is crazy because it almost could go against them in a way. You know, they're not recognized for doing that. So what is it that developer is going to be doing? Or and because they don't have that little window into that, they're really struggling to then get ahead and get some face time with the types of people that they want to be recruiting. So I think that's really, you know, wise. Make sure that you understand, you know, that it's not just about what the overarching product might be. If you're not a tech startup, it doesn't matter. You still might want to attract that type of talent to your business, and how you're going to do that. Okay, so let's just go back to Element as well. So you've had a successful year, obviously, and Startups 100 listed as number 10.
Yeah,
that's
that was
amazing.
cool.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
We're very happy and proud for any and all successes we've achieved this year. I feel very strongly about the vision and mission of the company. And it was back to storytelling. I say multiple times in a week, I do feel that what we're trying to achieve here is meaningful.
Yeah.
It has true meaning and value outside of building a stronger revenue stream and a stronger market penetration. That's very complex to unpack, and I don't think I do it despite what I do for a job. I don't think I do it service in the context of this call. But needless to say, I think our fundamental vision and mission for the organization around decentralized communication, giving people the right to privacy and the right to owning part of their communication and having access to private communication, has meaning and value in a rapidly evolving technical landscape where people realize how creepy the internet has become. You know, like if they call, I know this is out there, but like if they called cookies trackers, you'd decline all of them, wouldn't you? But we like cookies, so it's really easy to say accept all, right?
So just accept them.
It's an oversimplification, right? But I mean, I've had an iPhone for years and I still use WhatsApp, right? And I ignore all of the bits and bobs around my digital footprint, or I have done for a good couple of decades. And it's not why I'm working for the company. I kind of got to this point where I'm like, do you know what? I'm kind of sick of being fed advertising wherever I look.
Completely.
I already bought those shoes. Why are you still advertising them? So yeah, I think we're very proud of all of the steps we're making in the right direction as an organization. And I think it's still really early days.
And with things like, you know, being listed as number 10, etc., does that make your job easier? Is it kind of, do you see more incoming?
Yeah, I think anybody who says any PR is good PR is probably in PR. I think we're always really happy to be, for any sort of news media or marketing about us. But getting out, and the type of talent we're looking for isn't just going to come in bulk applications. You know? And we are a deeply technical organization that's heavily skewed towards engineering. And I'm not going to hire the volume of people I need as quickly as I would like, just by having an influx of applicants. But that's cool. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, playing the long game a little bit more, like understanding that it's not about putting process in place that's going to fix an immediate problem or, target that you might have. It's about understanding what, the longer term plan is, and the 5-year plan and the 10-year plan, and making sure that you get it right now, so that you're not, looking back and sort of at your mistakes, or, you maybe moved too soon and then it wasn't the right decision. So I think a slow and steady approach, like you mentioned earlier, is probably very wise. What about sort of tech and things like that? I mean, in terms of tech stacks and anything that you might use, like you said, it's a very particular area that you're recruiting for. Is there anything that you would recommend that you find useful?
No, do you know what? We're running the talent team here is running a pretty low tech stack at the minute, and it's my preference to keep it that way for a while. I think I'd value focusing on human connection and communication rather than a lot of bells and whistles and tools. I turned a few heads last week when I said that we don't use LinkedIn as a primary source of candidates. I stand by that. I'm not saying that the people I've hired through LinkedIn recently, I personally have had many jobs there, albeit I am in talent. But it's an oversaturated channel, right? What we're trying to do is build a holistic brand that people are interested in.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to achieve that in like 1 quarter or 1 year. I want to take, back to your side, I want to take it slow and steady and just build a team who understand how to connect with people and ask them what they need and want.
Yeah.
Language I've been using frequently recently around when talking to candidates about role specifications is that I'm not looking for square pegs to fit square holes, right? I'm looking to meet technical individuals and understand their desired direction of travel in their career and see where that aligns in our business. And take a more consultative approach to hiring for what's essentially an earlier stage technical business, albeit past the startup stage. And I think that mindset is delivering really well, instead of going like, well, here's the job spec. Do you do these things? Yes, no, pass, fail, right? I think that's good for enterprise scale organizations who want to hire 500 to 1,000 people and have very strict and rigid criteria in their mindset around what good looks like.
Yeah.
What I want to hire for is people who align with the vision and mission and care about staying in a role for a couple of years.
Sure.
I'd very much be, if I could achieve in the next few years, maintaining our headcount retention figures and managing like our churn and attrition, irrespective of everything else, I'd be quite happy, because changing jobs is really stressful. Interviewing is not fun. It's an incredibly stressful process. So I'd like everybody who comes to play and build with us to stay for as long as makes sense for them, and for them to leave as good leavers, going upwards and upwards with our blessings. I'm obviously a romantic.
But it's so true, because as much as we hear about like the Great Resignation and the counter-offer culture and all of that stuff at the moment, and everyone seems in a bit of a frenzy about their strategic workforce plans for next year and the demand ambition and how they are going to achieve that, essentially, which is right. That is one problem that they probably need to think about. But also I hear far less about, staff retention and making sure that actually the team that you've already got in place, making sure that they're feeling engaged and that they can see that longevity in their role, at least for a couple of years, like you say. So that's quite refreshing to hear, I think, because I don't think many people are talking at the moment about actually the people that have already, want to stay put and want to progress within their role and within a company. And That's what you need. I mean, chapter 2 is very similar. We've gone from 4 to 50, and then that will definitely continue for the next year at least. But we're very conscious that we need to make sure that we have people that are aligned with the mission and the values and everything, because we've got a long way to go. So you've got to get it right now.
One thing that I've been thinking, I haven't done any research or reading into this yet, but it's on my back of my mind list, is this incredibly buoyant and volatile market that we find ourselves in tech hiring. Like, how much of this is tied to the concept of exponential growth, right? Like, how many of these companies are going like, well, we need to grow by 7,000, 8,000 people in the next year because our shareholders demand it. I'm pretty sure the shareholders just want a good return on their investment, right? So, who in this cultural paradigm around exponential growth, who's driving what? Which forces are driving the need for this many jobs or this many open roles? And what's a healthy return on investment for growth? What's the cost of slowing down? I'm not an economist and I'm not very well read in this, but it's something I've been thinking about lately. Where, like, if the market's so crazy, why are we all in such a race to end the world, right? What's a more holistic approach to business growth and therefore headcount growth? I don't know. Just questions, no answers there. Sorry.
No, it's a good point. We're all sort of racing towards this target, but who's actually, setting it? So can we talk a little bit about the work that you do around mental health? And you post a lot about kind of the mental health work that you do and things like that. And I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about it, because I think it's really important. It's at the forefront of a lot of companies' minds, but I wonder how many of them kind of are actually doing, what they say. And I just wanted to kind of get your opinion, really, and your experiences so far.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few ways to approach this subject matter, but let's start from like a corporate or commercial perspective. I firmly believe if in 2021, 2022, as a forward-thinking business or as a 21st century people organization, if you don't have a line in your budget that's actually deliberately and intentionally attributed to well-being, and you're putting money behind that, that you haven't really committed to the people in your organization. And I don't mean like a gym subsidy that's a tax write-off. I'd prefer that you pay your people enough so they can afford the gym of their choice rather than have to choose X gym or and the whole fruit bowl thing is, don't get me wrong, I like good coffee in the office. If there's terrible coffee, I'll go buy my own coffee. I'm quite happy to front up on that regard. But well-being in that work context, I think, is individual.
Sure, yeah.
Right? To a company's culture and the meaning they attribute to togetherness and connection and disconnection, and also an individual's agency around what they identify with well-being. Like, a budget line, a budget line that an individual could address, where I could get a massage a month if I wanted. Or a manicure, a pedicure, because I run, so my fingers are fine, but my feet get shredded from running. Or I could take myself out for a nice lunch, and I could still be like not judged for that being like, me taking myself out for lunch for one. I feel pretty good. I feel like I've done an act of self-care. Or like whatever it means to an individual to focus on and practice self-care. The return on that investment for a business, demonstrating that you care and putting money behind it. And whether it's like engaging with somebody like Sanctus. I was lucky enough to experience their work, and I'm a huge fan of theirs. We don't currently use them at Element, but I hope we do in the future. or pick any other organizations that's invested in hands-on, proactive well-being for your team and company, demonstrating you care, right? And putting it in, hard coding it into the budget from the top down, and then talking about it, being okay to talk about the fact that the world is terribly confusing at the moment, and that has an impact on our teams, the individuals, and on the business and how we make business decisions.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think, like you say, it's so individual, what you perceive, wellness to be, and actually having just an across the board perk or whatever it might be that actually is going to tick 5 out of 10 people's boxes is really missing the mark and not really thinking properly about it. So I agree completely. And also I think talking is really the key word, giving people the opportunity to talk, and somebody as well that to talk to somebody that might not be your direct line manager, might not even be someone in your team, but just somebody that you can have that little bit of time with, especially working from home, more regularly. I mean, we're in the office 50-50, but actually getting that face-to-face time with people, you feel much, much better. You feel more refreshed. You've had that time to be able to talk to people. And I think it's kind of a really important thing, a buddy or just somebody that you can talk to, and making sure that it's actually put in place. It's an official thing. It can be whoever they want to, but it's actually discussed, and it's something that people know that they can lean on if they need to.
I think aligned with well-being is growth and learning and development from an organizational perspective. And I think hard coding, coaching, and mentoring into how we communicate as an organization from both like a leadership and a management structure through to peer groups is complex but valuable and meaningful. We at Element, we don't currently have a formal construct outside of an onboarding buddy and the informal coaching and mentoring that goes with the line management. But I know our management layer are fantastic at what they do and incredibly invested in that servant leadership model. So I'm confident in the deliverables there, but I do aspire for us in the next year and 2 years and 3 years to be able to codify coaching and mentoring and peer group buddying into a construct where people can communicate effectively and feel supported. We've got a small wellbeing group at the moment that's making steps in the right direction, but probably needs a budget line to support them, right? And a little bit more of like a leadership sponsorship. A bit more leadership sponsorship, right? Everything needs a champion, right? So I am firmly, back to the initial statement, I am personally very invested in mental health and well-being. I carte blanche refuse to be the one banging the drum all the time because it's at a detriment to my own well-being. Right?
So I'm conscious of time, it's flown by, but just to kind of leave it there. So like we said, this is just all about an open forum for you, industry leaders, experts in what you do, to kind of share your insight for that younger generation or someone that might be starting out and looking at how to manage this war for talent, as we like to say. So tell me if there's kind of 3 key things that you think should be a priority for those startups, what would you say?
You clearly understand what story you're trying to tell to the people you interact with and their place in that story. Demonstrate how you care and care deeply. And be prepared to show it in both words and actions, and focus less on brute force acquisition and focus stronger on retention, because those people you retain will only help you grow. Adding a point onto that, if you're in a startup and a scaling organization, and this is a really complex one because a lot of people won't identify with this, understand on a cultural level that we all have to be sort of in a growth and hiring mindset at a certain stage of growth. And that's really uncomfortable for some people. Mm-hmm. You have people who work in people who work in leadership and management roles, or in the function, like the people and the talent function. They get that that's their job and they've got responsibility to grow.
Yeah.
But distilling that to a scaling organization that actually, hey, we've all got a bit of a responsibility to each other to grow and to champion. Mm-hmm. That's very hard to engender, because you'll find that Ted in sales will be like, it's not my problem to help the company grow. I was like, Ted, you're in sales, mate. Like, or like Tess in marketing and be like, I don't want to talk about growing our headcount. I was like, well, you're in marketing, right? Loose examples. The same translates for engineering. Like, we need to, if we believe in the companies we work for, we have to be prepared to like say nice things about it publicly.
Yeah, sure. Treat it as if it's your own.
Yeah. But you only get that from the team and the organization if you care deeply about them and show that you care deeply and turn up for them, and deliver against their well-being and their learning and development, and don't just care about profit and growth. Care about the people who are helping you achieve that. Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's a really, really sound piece of advice, and probably something that people will take away and actually think, right, are we actually delivering on that? And are we actually making our people, do they know we care, So I love that. Demonstrate that you care. I think that's a really good one. Well, thank you so much, Mischa. I've really, really loved chatting to you. I knew it'd be good because I know when we talk normally that you're just straight to the point, and that's what we need. So thank you so much for your time, and good luck with everything in the future with the scaling that you're about to embark on. We wish you all the best of luck.
Thanks. Speak soon.
Speak to you later. Bye.